Do you think or feel people don't like you? Are you concerned about people not liking you? If this is you, then you're watching at the right time. You wake up every single day, and you go to work. You do it because you have to. You know you need that salary just to survive. So you save, you save, you save. But the weight of it? It's crushing. You can't just quit. You have responsibilities. You have people counting on you. And the worst part? Your boss doesn't even like you. You're trapped in this cycle living paycheck to paycheck. No splurging, no vacations, no expensive things. You can't even remember the last time you sat down and just ate out. And you're probably thinking, nobody understands how I feel. How do I get out of this loop? How do I actually change my life? If this feels like you are not alone. Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga wrote about the systems you need to actually change your belief, your entire philosophy of life, and finally come out of this phase. They wrote it all in a book I'll be breaking down today. The Courage to be Disliked. Let's start with system number 1. Deny trauma, or say it does not exist. First, listen to this conversation between a philosopher and a youth and draw your conclusions.
Suppose you have got a cold with a high fever and you go to see the doctor. Then, suppose the doctor says, the reason for your sickness is that yesterday, when you went out, you weren't dressed properly, and that was why you caught a cold. Now, would you be satisfied with that?
Of course I wouldn't. It wouldn't matter to me what the reason was, the way I was dressed, or because it was raining or whatever. It is the symptoms, the fact that I am suffering with a high fever. That is what would matter to me. If he is a doctor, I would need him to treat me by prescribing medicine, giving shots, or taking whatever specialized methods are necessary.
Exactly. No experience is a cause of our success or failure. We do not suffer from the shock of our experiences, neither are not determined by our experiences, but by the meaning we give them. This falls under the principle of teleology. Teleology doesn't say that the experience of a horrible calamity or abuse during childhood have no influence on forming our personality. Their influences are strong. But what's important is nothing is actually determined by those influences. We determine our lives according to the meaning we give to those experiences. In contrast, we have etiology, which is the study of the cause of an event. If we go back to our story, if you take an etiological stance, you would argue that what you suffered stemmed from such and such cause in the past. In teleology, what's important is not what one is born with, but what one does with what they are born with.
If I am going to change my life, I have to follow the principle of teleology?
Yes, exactly. Now, let's discuss system number 2. Why you dislike yourself.
I feel that I don't have any strong points. I have got nothing but shortcomings. Whatever the facts might be, that's how I feel. In other words, my self-esteem is extremely low. So the question here then, why do I feel so wretched? Why do I view myself with such low self-esteem?
Ask yourself, what kind of shortcomings do I have? Do you think if you get rid of that shortcoming, you will feel better about yourself? But that's simply not true. You probably think if I get another job or get transferred to another department, everything will be fine. It won't.
What you can do is accept yourself the way you are now, and then have the courage to change the things you don't like about yourself from where you are. In Adlerian psychology, this approach is called encouragement. To get rid of one's problems, all one can do is live in the universe all alone. But one can't do such a thing. System number 3. Feelings of inferiority are subjective assumptions. The feeling of inferiority can be a trigger for striving and growth. For instance, if one had a feeling of inferiority with regard to one's education and resolve to oneself and said, I'm not well educated, so I'll just have to try harder than anyone else. That would be a desirable direction. The inferiority complex, on the other hand, refers to a condition of having begun to use one's feeling of inferiority as a kind of excuse. So one thinks to oneself, I'm not well educated, so I can't succeed, or I'm not good looking, so I can't get married. The healthiest way is to try to compensate through striving and growth. For instance, it could be by applying oneself to one's studies, engaging in constant training, or being diligent in one's work. However, people who aren't equipped with that courage end up stepping into an inferiority complex. System number 4. How to rid yourself of interpersonal relationship problems. What another person thinks of you, if he or she likes you or dislikes you, that is that person's task, not yours. That is what separating is. You are worried about other people looking at you. You are worried about being judged by other people. That is why you are constantly craving recognition from others. Now, why are you worried about other people looking at you anyway? Adlerian psychology has an easy answer. You haven't done the separation of tasks yet. You assume that even things that should be other people's tasks are your own. You need to understand that what other people think when they see your face, that will always remain the task of other people and is not something you have any control over. System number 5. What real freedom is. Freedom is being disliked by other people. Being disliked is proof that you are exercising your freedom and a sign that you are living in accordance with your own principles. We want to satisfy our desire for recognition, but conducting yourself in such a way as to not be disliked by anyone is an extremely unfree way of living and is also impossible. There is a cost incurred when one wants to exercise one's freedom. And the cost of freedom in interpersonal relationships is that one is disliked by other people. The courage to be happy will always include the courage to be disliked. When you have gained that courage, your interpersonal relationships will all at once change into things of lightness. When one is tied to the desire for recognition, the interpersonal relationship cards will always stay in the hands of other people. System number 6. Do not live to satisfy the expectations of others. There will be someone who criticizes you no matter what you do. This person will come to dislike you, and you will not learn to like him either. There will be 2 others who accept everything about you and whom you accept too, and you will become close friends with them. The remaining 7 people will be neither of these types. A person who is lacking in harmony of life will see only the one person that dislikes them and will make a judgment of the world from that. When one seeks recognition from others and concerns himself with only how one is judged by others, in the end, one is living other people's lives. Wishing so hard to be recognized will lead to the following expectations held by other people who want you to be this kind of person. In other words, you throw away who you really are and live other people's lives.
Think more straightforwardly and more plainly about the mentality of real, everyday people. What about the desire to be recognized socially, for example? Why does a person want to climb the corporate ladder?
Then, if you get that recognition, would you say that you've really found happiness? Do people who have established their social status truly feel happy?
No. But that's
If, for example, the main point of your job turns out to be satisfying other people's expectations, then that job is going to be very hard on you because you will always be worried about other people looking at you and fear their judgment, and you are repressing your I-ness. It might come as a surprise to you, but almost none of my clients who come for counseling are selfish people. Rather, they are suffering trying to meet the expectations of other people. In conclusion, so life in general has no meaning whatsoever, but you can assign meaning to that life. And you are the only one who can assign meaning to your life, no matter what moments you are living, or if there are people who dislike you, as long as you do not lose sight of the guiding star of I contribute to others, you will not lose your way, and you can do whatever you like. Before I end, let's recap the Adlerian Toolkit. 1. Deny trauma, focus on purpose, not cause. 2. Choose self-acceptance over self-dislike. 3. Use inferiority as a fuel, not an excuse. 4. Separate your tasks from their tasks. 5. Pay the cost of freedom. Be disliked. 6. Live for your guiding star, not their expectations.